All the sports news you need every day in under 20 minutes. Follow Locked On today on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
It is Locked On Jazz for Wednesday, the 25th of August. Over-unders are out. Where do the Jazz sit? What do we think of them? And Ron Boone stays with us for day number 3, looking around the entire league. It's all coming up on today's edition of Locked On Jazz. Bum 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 pow.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Locked On Jazz is free and on all platforms, now on YouTube for you as well. Today's show, the betonline.ag over-unders are here for the year. I'll get some of my good friends around the league. Chuck Cooperstein, maybe, and I always do this every year. Mavericks announcer before it's over. Maybe I'll stop by with some other friends around the league, and we'll do some over-under fun as well on Locked On Jazz for all of you. Ron Boone's coming up. We'll talk league-wide stuff, bigger picture things. Thanks to Ron. Feel free to send him a thank you at 10:41 straight. Sorry for the little upload issue on Monday. I think we have it straightened out. Andy Larson joins us on Friday this week for the show. All right, let's get to the over-unders. So the quick version before we dig into all the details is here's how they have the West. Bottom up. Oklahoma City's the worst team. Rockets are the second worst. Spurs are the third worst team. Like, no DeRozan, no Aldridge. Popovich is in his final year. Quite a little story there. Wolves just continually, perpetually. I mean, that's kind of crazy with Karl Anthony Towns, with Anthony Edwards, with D'Angelo Russell, with a new at 33.5. I'll touch on that one. Kings at 36.5. These are some good teams with not a lot of wins. So that's the bottom 5. Pelicans at 6, or at the bottom, that's the bottom, 5. Pelicans at then the Grizzlies, and then we get to the playoff teams. So those are the out of the playoffs. Working up on the betonline.ag over-unders, we have the Blazers, then the Clippers at 7, the Mavericks at 6, tied with Denver at 5, the Warriors at 4, the Jazz and Suns tied at 2-3, and the Lakers as the number 1 team on the betonline.ag over-unders for the Western Conference. Just quickly, I know it's not our main concern, the East, Nets, Bucks, Sixers at the top, Heat, Celtics, Hawks, then Bulls, Pacers, Knicks, all the exact same, with the Magic, the Pistons, the Cavs being terrible. Interesting to me, and this just tells you how loaded this is, the actual number 1 takeaway I have on this is the idea that the Pelicans with Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson, the Kings with De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, whatever they're putting together, the Wolves with their time, like the Wolves are projected to be 10 games out of the playoffs. The Kings are projected to be 7 games out of the playoffs. The Pelicans are projected to be 4 games out of the playoffs. They added Jonas Valanciunas. Like, wow. To me, like the level of depth that we're dealing with in the NBA right now is actually kind of what jumps out to me more than anything else when I look at it. Now let's go to the top. So the idea here is obviously if the Lakers can get healthy, and with Anthony Davis and LeBron James, they're the best team. It's also an element of like who's betting. And if you drop, the idea here is you're going to get 50% of your bets on one side of this or the other. And the concern is that if you drop the Lakers numbers too much, you're going to end up with way too many people betting on the over. And then if they actually get hot, you've got a problem, right? If you're betonline.ag. So that's a little bit of it. What's also interesting here, and I think it's a little bit of a statement to not knowing, how many teams are going to play in the regular season. But the Jazz would have won 59 games. Players are going to play in the regular season. The Jazz would have won 59 games last year. The Suns would have won. Jazz would have won 59. Suns would have won 58. Even the Nuggets, who had the injuries and won 47, would have won 53, as would have the Clippers. And the highest over-under number here is 52.5. So 4 teams last year, it had been a full schedule, would have won more than 52.5. Actually would have won 53 in the Western Conference. This number's down because I think people are expecting a lot of rest this year, back to an 82-game schedule and coming off a short offseason. They're not certain on injuries, obviously, can swing it. But it does feel like a lot of over bets should be in line here, like over on 52.5 for the Lakers. The Jazz won 52 last year. The Jazz at 51.5, like they won 52 last year. The Suns won 51 last year. Their over-unders at 51.5. That jumps out also, is that, like, wait a sec, why is this? And I think some of this is predicated a little bit on what I was just talking about, is the Wolves, Kings, Pelicans, Grizzlies aren't pushovers. Maybe even the Spurs aren't a pushover. That the amount of teams that are a pushover in the West are really the Rockets and Oklahoma City are the only teams that I think you can kind of openly know you're getting 3 or 4 games out of in the season. And so then when you're suddenly playing, we play the Pelicans 4 times this year. Like, do you think are you certain you're going 3-1 against the Pels? Or are you going 2-2? These are the kind of questions that I would have, I think, which is keeping the numbers down. Then also, you just don't know, is LeBron playing 60 games? Is Anthony Davis playing 60 games? Quick run through on this one. The Warriors, to me, are the really interesting team here. The idea that the Warriors are the 4th seed. So Lakers, Suns, Jazz, Warriors at 4. I may be way off boat on this, but I don't see this. Like, they didn't make the playoffs last year. James Wiseman's in his 2nd year. I'm not sure. Rookies don't help you win. Moody and Kuminga both look good, but they don't help you win. Rookies just never help you win. And in very rare circumstances, okay, like never's an overstatement. Donovan certainly helped us, but it's unless they've really hit something like with a miraculous pick there. And then Klay Thompson, now they're talking about Christmas. We're talking Achilles. We're talking ACL. Like, I'm a little mystified on the Warrior love on this. The Laker regular season bump, you have Russ, you can give LeBron a little rest. Maybe. They're pretty thin, though. And LeBron doesn't like to rest, so I think you can maybe feel good on that. I do think that the team that's going to be most improved in the West is the Suns, because Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton, and Devin Booker will all be better, but then you get the question of whether or not you end up with Chris Paul being injured more. But I do think the Suns are the most improved team. So I feel like that's a reasonable over. The Warriors, I think, are a reasonable under. Jason Kidd coaching the Mavericks is a whole other concept here. Like the Giannis book that's out right now by fellow Occidental College graduate is kind of indicting on Kidd. Maybe he's changed of who he is, but Luka should be better, but Kidd's not a great head coach. Has not shown to be a great head coach in his track record so far. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. And then the Clippers are a wild card, 44.5. Paul George is still pretty great. I don't know what you can expect out of Serge Ibaka, but the rest of that team's still pretty darn good. The only question I would have on the Clippers is, at some point in the process, do they just kind of rest, lose their Denver and the Clippers both, to me, kind of run into this same interesting situation when you're trying to figure out their over-under. They're both still pretty damn good, right? You're without Kawhi Leonard and you're without Jamal Murray. And it's really a 12-month injury on the ACL, unless there's something that Kawhi's not a full ACL. But Jamal Murray is really as incredible as he is and as much of a go-getter as he is. It's really a 12-month injury. And so when you look at that, you get worn down. There's a few things. Denver, if you actually dug into it, their survival without Jamal Murray, it wasn't against the best of teams. And then I think the Clippers could lose a little oomph along the way when you're just trying to carry it through without Kawhi, and you can't win a championship when you used to be able to. The final team I'll talk about, this is like just a really quick overview of the West, and then we're going to do points gained here, and I'll get some more of this done. The final one is I'm not as down on the Blazers as everyone else. I may turn out to be wrong on this. First-year head coach in Chauncey Billups, I think is going to be a great disadvantage. But this was the number one offense in the NBA from the date in which they acquired Norman Powell, I believe. And I really, go back to my playoff analysis, which turned out to not be, frankly, right. But was that Portland, to me, lined up, if you kind of took their stuff after March 25th, they lined up to be as good as any team in the NBA in the playoffs. Now, again, funky season. How do you look at some of these numbers? But I'm not convinced that they're not going to be one of the best teams in all of the NBA in regards offensively. And so when we're talking about them as just being a, kind of a 43-win team, I'm not entirely buying it. Portland's offensive rating after they grabbed Norman Powell was a 120.9. And they were a +7 differential, third best in the NBA in those final 28 games. They just turned out to not win games they should have won. They had bad luck, frankly. They had really good luck early in the year, but they were the third best differential in the league after grabbing Norman Powell. I'm not entire 43.5 to me. I'm going, my kind of big bets here I would take is over on the Blazers and under on the Warriors. I might flip the two, frankly, when it gets right to it. All right, that's a quick look at the betonline.ag over-unders. We'll talk the rest of the NBA with Ron Boone coming up. Today's show is brought to you by my good friends over at Intercap Lending, Steve Carter and the crew. They are our official loan. Steve Carter's our loan officer. We've got a corporate deal with them for you, and they just do amazing work. I just love working with Steve Carter because I love getting the feedback from our listeners who've used Steve Carter and had the experience, because every single time it's the same thing. Wow, hyper responsive, unbelievable, helping me get it done. You guys know me well enough. You know what a zoo I am. I've gotten two refinances done with Steve. That's like superhuman on his part. Call Steve Carter at 385-800-8528. It's all about Intercap Lending. Intercap Lending, NMLS number 190465. Intercap Lending, they're hyper-responsive, direct lender. They can do difficult loans. They can straighten out if you got some things where the big loan lenders can't do it. And Steve Carter, it does an amazing job. They are blowing up. Why? Because they get deals done. And that's what wins for everyone involved, is getting the deals done. It's over at Intercap Lending. You can give Steve Carter a call, 385-800-8528. If you'd rather email me directly, I'll give you the setup with Steve and give you the direct email correspondence. Feel free to email me at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail.com. And I'll just set you up with Steve. He's always very quick to respond. Today's show is also brought to you by Sweatblock. If you have a excessive sweating issue or a big presentation, or you've got a high school kid who gets nervous at school and then embarrassed about it's only worse, this is an incredible answer for you. Doctor created and doctor recommended. Sweatblock is there for you. Here's how it works. Sweatblock is stronger and more effective than the clinical antiperspirants. You simply apply it at night before bedtime, go to bed. The next morning you wake up and wash and go about your day without worrying about sweat, guaranteed. So, huge date, big presentation, just an excessive sweater. This is a dream come true for you. There's no reason to sweat through shirts anymore. There's no reason to have that embarrassment where you hold the elbows in tight so that you don't have to show the pit spots. It is absolutely terrific. The owner, Chase, was telling us that he's not an excessive sweater, so he had to try out the product. So he did one side and went on a run and didn't do the other side. Absolutely amazing. Get it today, 20% off at sweatblock.com. Your promo code locked on. That's at sweatblock.com. Promo code locked on. Third and final day with the great Ron Boone here on the program. Thanks very much for tuning in. Appreciate it. Ron's been with us throughout the week, so if you haven't missed it, we've talked about the offseason moves, where the franchise is. Today we're going to talk about the Western Conference and how this is all going to work out. Ron Boone.
Yes, David.
Russell Westbrook is on the Lakers. What?
Yes. Now, What does he do for the Lakers? He's going to run off and leave most of his teammates. I think, honestly, David, I really think that if he changes his game, he can be effective. He can't be that guy that runs off and leaves his teammates all the time, just over and over and over and over. If there's a system in Los Angeles and they don't run that often or they're not that fast, and if they're going to continue to play that way, Westbrook has to slow it down. Westbrook has to be more efficient with his shots, and it's all going to be on his shoulders on how good the Lakers are going to be this year. Defensively, they were awfully good over the years, because of the type of defense that they play, the length that they have. They got Anthony Davis defending the rim, and they put a lot of offensive pressure on you with LeBron James. So the success of this team this year is going to be on Westbrook's shoulders, and he's going to have to really change his game. Otherwise, him and LeBron James are going to butt heads.
Yeah, I got to tell you what, Ron, I don't get this at all. All right?
Yeah.
So they're not a great half court. They've not been a great half court offensive team the last 2 years. Even when the year they won the title, if you look at their half court offense, it wasn't great. The league's about 3-point shooting and having as part of your floor spacing. There's no, that's undeniable. I don't in a half court offense, I don't know how they're going to score. They're going to have to be unbelievable defensively and then run. But you're asking 33, 36, 37-year-old guys to run seems contrary. And frankly, any team with Russell Westbrook and Carmelo Anthony, I think you're going to have a hard time being great defensively.
So, David, if they were so bad offensively, how did they win the NBA championship?
Because they did not play an above average defensive team in their entire run until they got against Miami in the finals, and Miami was hurt. How's that for a ready answer?
Dang, I knew you had the answer. I don't know why I asked the question. But now, think about this. You think that they was okay? No, I don't think. That's a bad question. They would, no way they just let Westbrook you just go ahead and go. If you have something, get it. Otherwise, you bring it back out and we'll get into our offense.
Well,
that's not going to work.
No, they got to let Westbrook be Westbrook, or else he has absolutely no value. Because you make Westbrook shooting 18% from 3-point shots over the last 3 years.
Yeah. Back off of him and let him shoot it.
Right.
And well, David, you stunned me. I don't know, and I don't think anybody can answer that question. Westbrook, I've heard some interviews with him and says we'll figure it out. You're going to have to figure it out. What do you mean you figure? Yeah, you're going to have to figure it out. Have they figured it out on other teams with him? Why is he so tradable? How many teams did he play for?
Every year he goes to one team and then wants his way out.
Yeah. So is that 5 teams already? 5 teams?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not like he's at the downside of his career when a lot of guys start to get traded, So, wow.
I might argue he's on the downside of his career, by the way.
Oh, really?
I think those knees have slowed him down. I think we can look at some numbers and see that he's not quite the same guy. I mean, I know he's loading up triple doubles and all that, but his 3-point shooting is, it may be listen to his 3-point shooting the last 4 seasons. 29, 29, 26, 32, 31.5. I mean, he just can't shoot. 29, 29, 34, 29, 29, 26, 31.5. Those are his shooting numbers last few years.
And those high percentage field goal percentage numbers that he getting a lot of layups.
Yes, his shooting at the rim has held consistent the last 3 years and actually increased. But You want to hear a crazy number on Russell Westbrook that if I was a Laker fan, I'd be very scared about?
And that is?
Percentage of field goal attempts taken at the rim. 4 years ago, 38% of his shots at the rim. 3 years ago, 36% of his shots at the rim. 2 years ago, 42% of his shots at the rim. Last year, 19% of his shots at the rim. He dropped from a 3-year average of 39% to 19% of his shots at the rim.
Ooh. Oh boy,
Ron Boone.
This is going to be interesting. I'm puzzled. I'm stunned. I don't know where with that. I don't know where he's going to be effective with the basketball team.
Do you have any, like, as a player? What is it as a player when you suddenly don't get to the rim anymore? What's happening there?
Well, if that was his biggest asset, is the way his ability to get to the rim, then all of a sudden you can't get there anymore. Now, to be effective out there on the floor, you got to get better somewhere else. I mean, your legs are the first to go in things like this. And then and then having the ability to take advantage of how teams are defending you, especially in the half court. Open court, that's a different story. And I think any open court trying to defend him as fast as he is with the basketball, it's totally different. But when you get older, those legs are the first to go. You change your game. You become better at something else, a la Karl Malone. He got better at the mid-range jump shot throughout his career. Can Westbrook do something like that? Or will he realize that and start to go in a different direction?
That might be the biggest question, is whether or not Russell Westbrook is willing to admit that.
Great point. And a lot of times, you remember your glory days and how good you were, or how I used to be able to do this, or that type of thing, and you're still trying to get it done, still trying to do those things that for the most part that you can't do anymore, but you're still trying to get it done.
I have one. Everyone asked, did anyone in the West get better? And the initial reaction to almost everyone is that nobody in the West got better, right? Denver did some things, but they probably don't have Jamal for a while, if not the whole season. Clippers, I'm not sure what they did. They held it together. They kept Reggie Jackson. They re-signed Nicholas Batum. They held it together, but I'm not sure how long they have Kawhi. I don't know if I think Dallas really got better. I just kind of said I don't think the Lakers got better. Portland actually, I think, might have gotten a little better. I think people have forgotten that Portland was the number one offense in the NBA. After Norman Powell, yeah. Once they went to Norman Powell, Dame Lillard, CJ McCollum, and Yusuf Nurkic, I think they had the number one in offense. Now, they also don't have the great offensive coach they had last year, so I think they probably got less good on the coaching front. I'll get to that in a second. But the one team I think gets better is Phoenix, because all those guys just get older. It's the same way that I think, and we didn't talk about this, but I think Rudy and Donovan are why we get better. Donovan's only in his 5th year. Devin Booker's in his 6th year. Mikal Bridges is in his 3rd year. DeAndre Ayton's in his 4th year. Like, these guys are going to get better because they're still young. Like, I actually think the two teams that are going to get better in the Western Conference this year are Utah and Phoenix, because their stars are the youngest. And
been with the same coach, same system. And yeah, that really, it totally makes sense, David. I have no comeback on that, but the Western Conference is still going to be strong enough to where you just can't take any team lightly.
No, I think there could be like 850 win level teams, right? Like, they're loaded.
Those numbers don't add up, do they, David?
No, they don't. It's impossible.
50 games.
Yeah, you can't actually. No, you're correct. The numbers do not add up. It is impossible to do that.
Okay, if you put it this way, there's 8 teams that have the possibility of getting 50 wins.
Yes, that's a better way to say it. All right, I have the other reason why I think the Jazz have an edge, and then we're going to wrap up the show in our final segment of the week with Ron Boone. because I've been playing a photo album of pictures of Ron Boone that he hasn't been able to see during all of these shows. And so I'm going to ask him about little things about each of the pictures in our final segment here in a second. Don't worry. If you're on the podcast, you'll get them. But here's the final reason why I think the Jazz have another advantage this season. And it's not as it's an inch one. All of the new coaches in the NBA, okay? And there was a ton of new coaches, and the big storyline everyone's making about the new coaches is how many black new coaches were hired. That's great. However, here's what I think the real storyline is. Udoka in Boston, never been a head coach. Okay? Jason Kidd, bad head coach. Willie Green, never been a head coach. Jamal Mosley, never been a head coach. Chauncey Billups, never been a head coach. Wes Unseld Jr., never been a head coach. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of these hires. They've all been assistants. But we have seen in this league, it is really, really hard to be an NBA coach in this league. Like really, really hard. And all of these guys that are first-time head coaches in the NBA, and I think all of them are first-time head coaches in their career, like that's a massive disadvantage compared to going up against a Monty Williams or a Quinn Snyder or a Rick Carlisle or a, I don't know, but like, right? Like to me, like when you now look at the top, like Frank Vogel and Tyronn Lue, like Frank Vogel, Tyronn Lue, Monty Williams, Quinn Snyder, that's a massive advantage if you're going up against Jamal Mosley, Wes Unseld Jr., and these guys that are first-time ever head coaches. I don't doubt all of them can be good head coaches over time, but it's hard.
David, I totally agree with that. And looking at it from that standpoint, then that tells me right there that there's going to be some teams that are going to struggle, especially early. Maybe a couple of them come to life after January, something like that, but they should struggle early. Now, you forgot Silas. Even though Stephen Silas would be a second year next year with the Houston Rockets, but you know, you look at what he had down there in order to win or try to win. Any of those teams that you mentioned that has first-time head coaches, you look at the talent level. There's some coaches that can coach talent, and then there's other coaches who can get the best out of less talent. And I think when we start looking at some of those coaches, you got to look at things like that, because a 50-win season just might be good enough for some of those new coaches that you just mentioned.
He's Ron Boone. We're going to play photo album fun with Ron Boone next to finish up the week's shows here on Locked On. Final segment of the week with Ron Boone coming up in just a second. Thanks so much for tuning in, and please give Ron a big thank you. Today's show is brought to you by Built Bar, our good friends with all the amazing flavors. Built Bar, the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, healthy, high protein, low calorie, and yummy. What else do you want? 100% chocolate, 100% delicious. Peanut butter brownie is out right now. Coconut almond. I can't tell you about those because those have nuts, but I can tell you the orange, strawberry, coconut, mint brownie, salted caramel, raspberry, double chocolate, cookies and cream, cherry barcia, all big hits. And when they come out with the specialty flavors, it's amazing. 18-bar mixed bar box for you, 2 of each flavor you can order, or build your own box, mix and match 3 flavors. And with Locked 15, you get 15% off. It's the best tasting protein bar on the market. It's Built Bar. Go to built.com and find out what you can get for yourself, and find out the bar that's taken over the Locked On Podcast Network and everybody loves out there. It's built.com. Promo code LOCKED15 will take care of it for you. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live and another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend log in for the No. I'll tell you all about a simple way to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally, it's DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. DirecTV Stream. It means no more juggling remotes, no more need to buy another device, all that other stuff, no annual contract as well. Get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible devices required. Content varies per buy package. It is DirecTV Stream. And when I'm done with this show with Ron Boone coming up next, I am on that immediately because we've got to get our home system figured out. It is DirecTVStream.com. Ron Boone, more with a great one. Make sure you send him a tweet at 1041 straight and thanks him for the week's work. Final segment with Ron Boone. We've been doing all week. It's been great fun. All right, RB, I've been playing a bunch of pictures of you, and I'm going to put them up. I know you can't see them, but right. I'll give you a little description. You can kind of tell us a story or a memory about the time. How's that? So the first one is you, very muscular, moderate hair level, nowhere near your afro days, probably just a good inch and a half. ABA ball, Spirits of St. Louis, #1. That's like the legendary team of the ABA and the Spirits of St. Louis. What do you remember about that period of time?
What I remember about that team, David, if that team would have gone into the NBA, that would have been one of the better teams in the NBA at that time. Myself, and notice I put myself first.
I like it.
Marvin Barnes, Moses Malone, Don Chaney, Caldwell Jones, Mike Barrett, ML Carr.
Wow.
We could have gone into the NBA with that team. Freddie Lewis, and man, we could have made some noise in the NBA if that team would have been selected to go into the NBA. That team, Moses and I joined that team because of the dispersal draft, and so we were only there for like 2.5, 3 months to finish out the season.
And remind people why there was a dispersal draft with 3 months left in a season.
Well, the dispersal draft was to see what the NBA, what players the NBA wanted off of the teams that they didn't want in the NBA. Utah was one of them. It was not a team that they selected to go into the NBA, and so they sent a few of us to certain teams, and then the NBA had a dispersal draft. I was picked number 3 by the Kansas City Kings.
That's better than when you were drafted in the 24th round out of Idaho State.
No, it sure the heck was. It was not the 24th round, but the 12th round.
No,
and
just kidding.
Was the 24th round? Oh, okay.
I think it was the 12th round, maybe the 240th pick. So
yeah, somewhere in there.
All right.
But they had a lot of.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm good.
All right. Your next picture of you rising up for a jump shot, very one-handed. The left-hand guide hand is not on the ball. You're wearing your white Stars shirt with a star, number 24 in the front. You're shooting it over Billy Pultz, and you've got very short shorts on. What do you remember about those times?
I remember those short shorts. That's for sure. But Billy Pultz, big center, played for the New Jersey Nets at one time, and the San Antonio Spurs. I think he played there as well. He was a pretty good center, but better known for the bar he had in New York. I think he might still be a bar owner up there. That's what he liked to do.
It looks like this is probably in the Salt Palace, particularly if you're wearing white. Decent crowd, mm-hmm. Some empty seats in the back. Like, what was that what was that like as a place to play?
Well, if I knew which one you were looking at with the type of uniform we had on, was it a star on the uniform?
Yeah, star in the front and kind of a little lines coming up the side of your short shorts with stars on the waistband.
So that's getting to the point where it's like the 73, 74. I'm not sure if Moses was here then. And the attendance may have dropped a little bit, but early in the Stars' day, especially after winning the ABA championship that first year, 12,000 seat arena, we were pretty much selling it out, David.
It's pretty great. All right, the next one, same uniform. You're going up for a rebound, and I think it's against George McGinnis, because 30 on Indiana to me is George McGinnis. Is that right?
George McGinnis and I'm thinking Mel Daniels may have been George McGinnis, I think, was number 30. So am I going up for a rebound, or am I? What am I doing?
Looks to me as though you might have out-jumped George McGinnis. The ball's up on the glass. You've reached through him, and I think are getting a rebound. McGinnis is screening out with his left hand against one of your teammates whose number starts with 2. I can't see who it is. But I think you're going to grab this board, Ron. I think you're getting this one.
You know, those are the days when, you know, you thought you could out-jump everybody, and, you know, you had and that Indiana Pacer team was the Utah Stars' rival. Man, we had some great basketball games against them. But then George McGinnis, he was the one-handed jump shooter. Remember him? Very strong, and went on to star with the Philadelphia 76ers, as a matter of fact. But if that uniform, I think, was like the 73, 74 season. The owner of the Utah Stars back in those days, David, was a very patriotic owner. Bill Daniels was his name. Made all of his money in cable TV, you know, that type of thing. And after we won the NBA championship, that following year, we played the Milwaukee Bucks in a preseason game, who had won the NBA championship that year. And Bill Daniels wanted us to wear, and we only wore them one time, our warm-ups that you go out on the court was a flag. And we decided we wear those just that game and that game only.
And what was particular about those warm-ups?
They were flat out. I mean, it was a flag, David, and plus they were ugly.
They were ugly.
It was a flag. And just think about that preseason game with Oscar Robertson on it and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with those sky hooks with that 16-foot lane was just too much for us. Even though Delmo Beatty, you know, had some very good ball games against any of those NBA centers, but Kareem was just a monster.
Well, speaking of Kareem, my next picture is Kareem giving Magic Johnson 5, and you're sitting next to them with the ball on your hip. So it's Magic, Kareem, and Ron Boone.
I have that picture on my wall, David. I'm looking at it right now. That was Magic's first year, and you see that smile on his face. He had that on his face all the time. He was a kid that came into the league that just loved to play, and he had a ton of fun. And when they found out how good he was, they shipped me right out of there. Shipped me somewhere else.
And when did you know he was that good?
Well, you see it in practice, how he just dominated practice. You know, at 6'9", and you can tell that Kareem loved him. Because Kareem could move, he can get in the basketball and put it in the right pocket to where he could catch and shoot that sky hook. But he ran, and you just love to play with a guy like that. That and you can see why Worthy and you know, guys like that end up having Jamal Wilkes. That was your man, wasn't it, Jamal Wilkes? No, Purvis Short.
Purvis Short and World Be Free were my backyard guys.
World Be Free, that's right.
All right, my last picture is you hanging in the air. Your socks are pulled up to your knee. You're wearing a Dallas shirt with number 12 on it, and you're driving to the basket with your left arm outstretched, the ABA ball. I think you're wearing white low tops against some guy on Indiana, number 14, who looks very small but very muscular.
Is there a white guy?
No, black guy.
Okay, so that would have been Freddie Lewis. I was thinking that it would have been Billy Keller, who, since you said very small, but that would have been Freddie Lewis. That was probably my first or second year in the ABA because I wore number 12, and when I arrived here in Utah, Mike Butler already had the name of the number 12, and so they gave me 24, and that's how I became to wearing number 24. But that, again, that's the Indiana Pacers, right? And that's boy, they were everybody's rival. They were a very good team with Mel Daniels, Freddie Lewis. They had Roger Brown and Bob Nedelecki. I mean, they were a very good basketball, coached by none other than Slick Leonard, Hot Rod's favorite drinking buddy.
Well, maybe they're having one together.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right.
Maybe so now.
Slick just passed away. So,
Yeah.
there does not seem to be much of a crowd there in Dallas. Is that fair?
No, you're absolutely right. It was not a very good crowd, and I think that's the reason they end up moving and going to San Antonio.
Okay.
ABA really struggled early in the ABA days with attendance. I remember playing in Houston to where it wasn't very many people in the crowd, so they put all the fans on one side of the floor, and then they had the cameras from the where they didn't have anyone in the seats on that side of the floor, so the camera was always pointing toward fans, and it kind of filled up the arena as far as the cameras were concerned, but attendance was not very good early in the ABA days. Except in Utah. Filled it up.
I like it. I actually have one more here because I want you. It's the Utah Stars team leaders. So it's you scoring, you free throws, Al Smith assists, and Moses Malone on rebounds. What was Moses like?
Sweet Mo. He was an 18-year-old that had a tremendous speed. He had the best second, third effort after a rebound that anyone I've ever seen. And that was his greatest asset when he first came into the league. And obviously, it being a Hall of Famer, he developed very the turnaround jump shot, the little jump hook. But his biggest asset, boy, was rebounding and around the glass. He was 18 years old when he came into the league, and one of the first to go join the professional basketball team right out of high school. Who was the other ones? Let's say Daryl Dawkins and there was another kid.
Robert Willoughby or someone like that. Remember that name? Like something like that?
Wimberly. There was Bill Wimberly, something like that.
Yeah. All right. The last picture is you and Hot Rod laughing together. Any memories you want to share about Hots?
Boy, where you want me to start? I mean, he was very fun to work with. And, I had some great years working with him. I learned a lot from him as far as TV is concerned and what to look for in the ball games. What I did learn was I learned to look for the opposite of what he was, what he looked at or how he broadcast the ball game. Because he was such a good broadcaster. He anticipated very well, something similar to what you do, David. So our fans can understand what's going on here. Sometimes you guys are so excited, you get ahead of the play, and you know what's going to happen. He's going to dunk the basketball, and he throws it down, and it comes back out. But you're ahead of the play. But he was so good at that, and just enjoyed work. It was so sad for me anyway after being with him for 16 years when you see him in the situation that he was in and the way he was just unable to take care of himself.
All right, the last bit of this, we leave with the Ron Boone picture. 24, the jersey up on the screen. Ron Boone, thanks for taking time with us all week. It's been fun. The advent of YouTube lets us have a little more fun there. We start very soon. I hope you realize that. We usually do these interviews in August, and so this is actually on schedule. But we start in 6 weeks. You realize that?
Yeah, that's 6 weeks until the season will start somewhere around the 20th. Is that right?
I think it's a little earlier. October, a little earlier than that, yeah.
October, okay, because I know when they went to...
Preseason starts the 26th or 7th of September.
Oh, that's when practice starts.
Yeah.
But the games will start around... Boy, they're not even playing as many preseason games.
Yeah.
So the games will start 2 weeks or 3 weeks after when practice.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to be 18th, 19th, or 20th. I think. I feel like that's a little late, but I think that's probably right.
Okay, so last year, David, we finished the season May 16th.
October 19th is the opener, just to make sure I'm accurate on that. So say that again. We finished May what?
We finished the season May 16th last year. And this year, and we didn't start till March 12th with preseason games. Only 3 preseason games last year, so probably end up being about the same this year as well.
Yeah, four of them out this year. Will open in San Antonio, then to Dallas, home against Milwaukee and New Orleans in reverse order.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's get going.
All right, RB, thank you very much for the time. We greatly appreciate it. Big hand of applause for Ron Boone. Thank you. Send him tweets at 1041 straight and tell him thanks. This has been Locked On Jazz. Have a great weekend.
Hey, what's happening? It's your boy Q, host of the Locked On Raiders podcast, a daily podcast covering the Las Vegas Raiders each and every day. I'll give you the news and the notes of the day with the Raiders or across the NFL. I'll have calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line and have good conversation or a really good interview. You got to tune into the Locked On Raiders podcast every single day on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Again, to stay up to date on everything Las Vegas Raiders, make sure you tune in to the Locked On Raiders podcast.